Hey, hello there, and welcome to Human Design, Whether or Not, with me, Margot Fraser. Our main themes for this cycle: can you adapt to shock or will you withdraw? There's the opportunity to push your individual limits to know yourself in a deeper way, or egoic competition, attunement to truth and what's safe and healthy for you, or fear of the future. These are all pressures and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for October 7th to 13th, 2025 will bring. So let's dive in. We have a very potent cycle. It begins on October 7th at 9:44 p.m., going until October 13th at 2:19 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates that starting October 8th at 3:44 a.m., going until October 13th at 8:19 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We're moving into two individual activations this cycle, which have underlying themes of mutation, knowing in the now, and empowerment. Individual traits operate in a pulse in the moment. And I mentioned this is a very potent cycle because both of our Sun Earth activations are going to be in full channels for the cycle. So we'll look at the gates individually, and then I'll talk about the channel themes. We have the Sun moving into gate 57, the trait of intuitive insight in the splenic center. That's our most primitive awareness center associated with survival, health, and well-being. Its keynote says the extraordinary power of clarity. And it brings an awareness of whether to struggle for clarity or not. Intuitive here means an acoustic knowing in the now. This is a trait that's very, very attuned to frequency. It's the gate of the right ear that hears in the now. It's like the ears of the immune and lymphatic system that are attuned to, is this safe for me or not? Is this healthy for me or not? And with that comes, is this true for me or not? It's not only taking in sound frequencies coming into that right ear, it's also whole body attunement to vibration. Think about your immune and your lymphatic system. They run through your full body. The potential opportunity it brings is to experience a pulse of knowing in the now of whether something that you hear or an environment that you're in is safe and healthy, or whether what you're hearing is true or not. This is not the ajna, the mind. So it's not about making sense or being logical. It's the body's intuition. And it operates in a split second before the brain can even figure out what it might be about. The caution here is that every trait in the splenic center carries a primal fear. And for this trait, it's fear of the future, fear of the unexpected. If you are feeling that fear while this trait is present for this cycle, or perhaps you have this trait in your own design, it's always a reminder to come back to the present. That's where this trait operates, in the now. This trait is being grounded by the Earth's position, gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, which is also called the heart center. The ego center is a motor, and it's a motor that provides willpower. This is the only individual trait in the ego center. All the rest are tribal. It brings the power to leap out of the homogenization of the tribe and into the unknown. The unknown's within yourself. When you leave the tribe, it can be shocking. There are things you're going to have to navigate, and you're going to find out a lot about yourself in doing that. There are new things that you're going to be initiated into. You're going to find new depths within or not. This is the heart of the warrior. Its keynote says the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. The opportunities that are potentially there as this trait gets activated is that this is a trait that can bring courage and bravery in making that leap into something new. It's a place where you can have the courage to test yourself, to stretch yourself, to test your own limits. Ideally, it's about win-win competitiveness, right? Because it's with yourself. It's about stretching yourself. It isn't a power play. It's not meant to be a way to have power over another. It's about rising up and having the courage to develop yourself. When you respond to the shock of the challenge or the new, to rise up and adapt, that can be very empowering. It's something that you learn to handle better and better as you gain life experience. The cautions here, well, this is the ego center. So you can find yourself taking foolish risks to try and prove yourself or prove something to others, especially if you have an undefined heart center, if it's white in your chart. There can also be that lower level competitiveness to win at the expense of others. It could bring also withdrawing rather than adapting when something shocking happens. That's not necessarily wrong, by the way. If your strategy and authority are guiding you to withdraw, then that's what you do. But if it's out of the mind's fears, then you'll be missing out on the wisdom in the process. Individual traits can pulse into melancholy. For this gate 51, it's the melancholy that there's nothing exciting happening or that you won't be able to break out of a tribal role. And for gate 57, our sun's position, it's the melancholy that comes in through what one is hearing. Individual traits are also not here to be influenced by others. So you may generally find for yourself and others this cycle that you don't want to be interfered with, or others are getting upset because you're interfering with them. We are in uncertain times. So do your best to allow these individual traits to support you in navigating any of the shocks and what's safe for you in the moment. Of course, ultimately, you need to follow your own strategy and authority, but wisdom from these traits can support that. When we look at these Sun Earth positions together, they could support you in using your acoustic knowing to know what leaps to take to break out of that homogenization and be yourself. Or you could know in the now how to adapt to shocks that come in. Or things that are shocking that come in could feed into the fear of the future and what lies ahead. This last one is likely what we'll see happening around us in the not self world. Do your best not to get caught up in that. You have your strategy and authority to guide you. Let's move on to the channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart, their body graph, is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very potent cycle as both the Sun and Earth activations are in channels for the full cycle, and channel themes always dominate gates. It means that everyone will have the splenic center and the throat center, and the heart or ego center and the G centers activated this cycle. So if there are any of those centers that you don't have defined in your chart, in other words, they're white in your chart, they are going to be defined and they're going to be activated in an amplified way over this cycle. Let's look at gate 57, the sun's position connecting with its electromagnetic gate 20 in the throat center being activated by Uranus. This is creating the channel of the brainwave, a design of awareness. If you don't have the splenic center defined in your chart, this is going to bring pressure to be spontaneous. And if you don't have the throat center defined, it's the pressure to express what you know so that you can be recognized. This is the channel where the intuitive insights that come through the acoustic knowing in the now, in that gate 57, have access to the throat to be expressed through that gate 20, the trait of the now. So the expression that can flow through here is, I know now. You might get a sense through an acoustic knowing of truth and lies, what's safe, what's not, what's healthy, what's not, as we talked about with that trait 57, and be able to clearly articulate that. This allows an adaptability in the moment, this channel. However, just because you know what's going on through that intuitive insight doesn't mean you can automatically share it. Wait to be invited. Or for the few manifestors out there, you need to ask permission to share. Blurting out what you know is likely to end up just being to the wrong people at the wrong time. And then it just goes unheard, or it will be rejected, misunderstood, or just be considered weird and not credible. Then we have the Earth's position, gate 51, that trait of shock in the ego center, connecting with gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love that's being activated by Neptune in the G center, the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. If you don't have the ego center, the heart center defined in your chart, the willpower that is being activated could have you making promises that you can't keep. Undefined ego centers are not here to make promises or to need to prove yourselves, but society sure says that you should. If you don't have a defined G center, the amplified definition could have you feeling that you should fix your direction, your identity, and your way of loving rather than being fluid in those areas. Together, these gates create the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. This is an individual channel that can bring that pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, initiating you into a new sense of self, coming more deeply into the self and being centered in that. This is part of the centering circuit and can be very empowering and supporting of yourself and accepting yourself as you are. That's the opportunity. It also brings the opportunity in a greater way to be able to adapt to shock. The caution, though, and what we most often see in the not self world is being competitive with others out of the ego. I really expect to see competitiveness, anything where one side is trying to win over the other side to be amplified this cycle, because most of the world is operating out of the not self. It is the channel of initiation. So initiations, being initiated into something new, into the unknown, is more likely, well, this is present. All right. Our next three channels are being activated by the moon. They're just going to be minor in their effects, so I'll go through them quite quickly, just give you a little brief overview of them, because those other two channels, that's the main story of this cycle. They are so dominant. All right, October 7th at 5:25 p.m. until October 8th at 2:24 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, October 7th at 11:25 p.m. until October 8th at 8:24 a.m. So this actually just came in at the end of the last cycle and continuing into this cycle. We had the moon moving into gate 3, the trait of ordering in the sacral center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 60, the trait of limitation being activated by Pluto in the root center. Together, they create the channel of mutation, a design of energy that fluctuates and initiates. Another individual channel. So strong individuality this cycle. Here we have the old represented by gate 60 meeting the new of gate 3. If the pulse comes through, there's the potential to break out of the limitations of the old and into something new. And that's going to bring the need to reorder things. So it can bring some chaos. There's the potential opportunity for something new to come through. Just keep in mind that you have no control over when or if the pulse will come through. The caution is that even if that does happen, you get this pulse, you need to break through now, you need to change this now, you still have to use your own strategy and authority to determine if the change is really correct for you. Next, we have coming in October 10th at 5:40 p.m., going until October 11th at 2:56 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's October 10th at 11:40 p.m., going until October 11th at 8:56 a.m. The moon moving into gate 35, the trait of change and progress in the throat center. connecting with its electromagnetic gate 36, the trait of crisis in the solar plexus emotional center. Together, they create the abstract experiential channel of transitoriness, a design of a jack of all trades. This is not about going into the depth and really mastery. This is about a breadth, the breadth of experience. So it brings the pressure to go through an experience and see it through to its end to make experiential progress. The rule of thumb is to never repeat an experience, but to move from one experience to another. Hence the transitoriness. With the emotional center connecting to the throat center, this can be a pushy energy, so it can bring emotional volatility. If you enter into an experience out of the pressure and it's correct according to your strategy and authority, this can really support you. If it's not correct according to your strategy and authority, it's going to end up bringing frustration, anger, disappointment at the unmet expectations or the sense of feeling stuck. Last up, we have October 11th at 12:15 p.m., going until 9:40 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's October 11th, coming in at 6:15 p.m., going until October 12th at 3:40 a.m. The moon moving into gate 12, the trait of caution in the throat center, can also be the trait of incaution, connecting with the north node's gate 22 position, the trait of grace or disgrace. Together, they create the channel of openness, a design of a social being. The expression in gate 12 is empowered by the emotional motor and possible awareness of gate 22. This channel brings a pressure to be socially open or closed. It's individual, wants to bring through a mutation. It can bring the intensity of emotions to the mood, whether up or down. The romance, the passion can be here. It can shift the emotions of others. It's the only social channel in the individual circuitry. It does bring the possibility of bringing your unique expression to social interactions that in turn shifts them. It brings the possibility to be open to others in a graceful way. Being graceful here is about politeness. The caution is that if you pulse down in the mood, you may just want to withdraw and be more socially closed rather than bring that bad mood to a social situation. There can be emotional enthusiasm or volatility here with that connection from the emotional center, again, directly up to the throat. This brings us to our long-term transits, which are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. And so your not self mind could start to think they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. Then when that transit eventually leaves, that can be a little confusing to the mind. The north and south nodes of the moon start this cycle in line 2, in gates 22, the gate of grace and the emotional solar plexus center, and gate 47, the gate of realization and oppression in the ajna center, our mental awareness center. They're going to move into line 1 partway through this cycle. Now, the nodes are about what we see in the world and what's in our environment. Line 2 that we start in brings a quality of being open or closed to socializing, particularly with people that we don't know. And it tends to be on a more superficial level. So it can open doors, but there's not really going to be a depth to the conversation. And this being busy to avoid the making sense process in that gate 47 in a way that just allows it to take its course. The question is what you're being busy with really of value to you or not? Then we're going to see this move into line 1 on October 11th at 9:15 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, although it's only going to be for about 5 days for now, as the nodes, which normally move in a retrograde direction, will go direct in our next cycle. Line 1 is very different than line 2 in its operation. This is the line of the investigator. It's introspective. It's going to delve into what this trait really means. There's always this theme of security and insecurity with line 1. So for gate 22, the gate of grace, line 1 is called second class ticket. Its exaltation says the ability to accept and enjoy a subordinate position, the emotional awareness to enjoy a subordinate position. Gate 22 is the gate that empowers attentiveness and listening. In that, it means waiting for the other to speak before responding. So there's a politeness that's built into it. The detriment says the inevitable humiliation that comes with claiming a first-class ticket with a second-class ticket, where the emotional energy challenges the awareness and can result in humiliation socially. This is not being polite, trying to go first, which will result in embarrassment. Perhaps even an accident. For example, if you're in a car and you're trying to beat out the other person by jumping the traffic light. Gate 47, that trait of realization and oppression in the ajna center, when it moves into line 1, it's called taking stock. It says the ability in times of hardship to concentrate on eradicating the negative factors that have led to oppression. Realizing that negative thoughts have to be eradicated. Mentally, this is a part of the mental process. Mentally engaging and making sense of experiences and putting the puzzle pieces together means looking for what didn't work in the way that was expected so that you can determine what will work better going forward. The realization of the lessons allows then the negative factors to be eliminated as they're transformed into wisdom. The detriment here says the delusion of seeing oppression as an exclusively external phenomenon with often disastrous results. The sense that the world is against you. In the detriment, the making sense process is about figuring out who to blame. If you have to make sense only because of what others did, and it's always their fault that you have to sort things out, then you never get the wisdom and the lessons that are here for you. But expect, again, the detriment to play out more broadly in the not-self world. The world is against me. Jupiter is sitting in gate 62, the trait of detail in the throat center. It's part of the mental logic circuitry. It's going to start this cycle in line 3 called discovery, which really epitomizes the third line, trial and error way. Not always fun going through trial and error as a process because our society tends to associate mistakes with failure, but this is how we really learn. However, in the trial and error process, there's also the possibility to stumble into something unexpected that's really useful. And that can come through this line 3 in this exaltation. Or in the detriment, instead of delving into the mistake and understanding it to learn, you can't handle making the mistake and give up. On October 10th at 6:29 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Jupiter is going to move into line 4 called asceticism. And asceticism means withdrawing from any indulgence. The exaltation says the perfected ascetic withdrawal in the pursuit of harmony and simplicity, where outside dangers do not exist. And there's time to pursue inner meaning in detail. Detail that can only be expressed after periods of isolation and reflection. So where lines 1 to 3 are internalized, lines 4 to 6 are externalizing. So the fourth line understands that on the other side, there's the 17th gate opposite it, with its opinions that need to have all the facts and details organized for. So here it's about withdrawing to work all of that out. It's quite a process. The fourth line has the theme of the opportunist, and the opportunity to express the facts and details will come in time. This is about getting prepared for that time, really getting it all worked out. By the way, if you know someone who has the 62 line 4, really great if you don't interrupt them when they're in their process. Oh, so how's it going? What are you working on? You're likely to get a mean response. All fourth lines carry the wave of kindness to meanness. And they're likely to say something like, don't bother me, I'm thinking. All right, the detriment for this trait says, or this line says, the urge to take action against established values that when restrained by circumstances leads to withdrawal that waits for opportunity, where the detail is organized, Isolation as a strategy, waiting for the right opportunity for expression. So there's still the withdrawal. It's kind of the same thing in a way as the exaltation, but here the ego's involved. So yeah, got all the details and facts in place, and then withdrawing. Yes, I'm going to wait until I can get them, right? And then you surprise others with what you know. Ha ha, gotcha. As Jupiter expands this quality, there may be more withdrawing if you don't have your facts and details in place. And there's also going to be this gotcha expression by those who have things worked out, or at least they think they do. Remember, this is the mental process, and the facts and details may not actually pan out to be true when they're tested. While Jupiter is in the third line of the trial and error process, it is going to receive support from Neptune's position, gate 25 in the G center, which is also in line 3. We talked about gate 25 already. It's the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. Line 3 is called sensibility, and it has a developmental theme that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success, right? It's very sensible. It brings the power of the ego to withstand failure and still maintain its nature. The power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock. This can help us in a lot of ways with everything that's going on in the world right now as things are breaking down in preparation for the big frequency, background frequency change that's going to happen in 2027. Saturn is in gate 36, the trait of crisis, and in line 5 called the underground. We only have the detriment present in the world right now, and it says a nervousness that can lead to self-betrayal. Self-betraying nervousness in times of crisis. This is where you get so nervous about going into a new experience or so excited that you let it go. You don't do it. That's what it means by self-betrayal. You abandon going into the experience. Uranus, with its unusualness, its revolution and side-tracking qualities, is in that gate 20 with our sun's position, creating that channel. This is the trait of the now. It's in line 1 called superficiality, with a developmental theme that says a reliance on shallowness. Now, that can seem kind of off-putting, right? This line is called superficiality, but that's just how it expresses. This is the first line. It's introspective. It's here a gate that's part of integration, the backbone of survival. There's an awareness this line brings of what's going on around you in the world, but what gets actually expressed out verbally is superficial. It will be about what you're aware of in the now, out of this pressure. Wow, I feel like the weather, it's just changing. The pressure just changed. Must be a new weather system coming in, right? Very superficial. But put it in a life and death situation, you're going to be very clear about what's going on. Pluto, with its qualities of inner truth and ruling the larger cycles, continues in gate 60, the trait of limitation in the root center, in line 6 called rigidity. This is a frequency that can help you accept limitations and not try to push through them until you see that the mutation, the real change can happen. Or there can be this real agitation with it, even feeling depressed at being limited. You know, you have to be restrained and not push through limitation, but you don't like it. So overall, our channels with the sun and earth are going to dominate as both are individual. It's going to amplify that individual quality of leave me alone, let me do my thing. There's an opportunity for you as an individual to be attuned in the now and receive intuitive insights and to move more deeply into knowing yourself and being centered. In the not self collective, a highly competitive ego and blurting out truth or lies, competing through telling truth or lies is something that we're likely to see. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it. But whether there's actually anything for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the chart at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human design. All right. Well, do your best to use that ego, willpower, energy in a healthy way. If you're one of the 65% of people that don't have the ego and heart center defined in your chart, watch that you're not taking foolish risks to prove yourself and that you're not blurting out what you know without being invited. It's a great cycle to really attune to your body and how your body, through your immune and lymphatic system, reacts to the acoustic knowings that may come through. What is that for you? Maybe your hairs stand on end, you get goosebumps, or there's a little contraction or expansion in your body that tells you what's healthy, what's safe, what's true, what's not. If you ignore the intuitive insights, it could have a negative impact on your immune system. This is the splentic center, very tied in and correlated with the immune system functioning. On the other hand, you may receive insights on how to keep yourself healthy as you take any of the knowings that could come in and process them through your strategy and authority. All right, have a great cycle. May you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.